Hi guys, welcome to yet another review. This time around I'm bringing you the ZIIGAAT X HangOut Odyssey 2. This is a 1+3 hybrid and it is Hangout Audio's take on the original ZIIGAAT Odyssey, which came out earlier this year. 1+3 if you guys recall, and still maintains its 1+3 configuration. If you remember, the original one was perhaps somewhat V-shaped, you could say, with good bass, good treble, and with the mids being maybe held back into second place. And this one now has changed a little bit that overall let's say tuning by trying to, well, first of all, lowering the extension up top, giving it a little extra boost in the upper mids to upper mids, and trying to somehow tuck in the bass slightly better. I wouldn't say that the difference is monumental in any one of these little slight changes, but it is a change which has been enough to confer overall a sound which is less V-shaped, if you want to put it that way, and more, let's say, mid-focused, more mid-centric. Anyway, this is the box. I'm not going to bore you with all of the details there. Some of the information that comes from behind. It brings this bigger case that we've now seen some of the ZIIGAAT stuffs bring out, so it is what it is. The cable's actually pretty decent. It is the with exchangeable terminations. Could be a little bit thicker in gauge, but it's, it is what it is. In terms of price, it's $249, so $20 over the original Odyssey. And the shell again is always the typical ZIIGAAT quality and ZIIGAAT look. There you go, beautiful faceplate design. It just looks the business, well built, well. I mean, it's a really nice IEM. The shell seems to be in metal, as you can see by the timbre, while the original one was in resin, and I guess that as well has thus conferred that slight little change in the timbre and in the tonality that we hear here now in the Odyssey 2. Again, all right, that's it. Anyway, let's jump into it. What do I have here? Obviously, the Odyssey, the original Odyssey had to be. I've got here the ZIIGAAT, the Crescent, and I've got here as well the QE ears, the KE4. These two are both 2+2s, so two DDs in an isobaric configuration plus two BAs, two DDs in an isobaric configuration plus two BAs. They, I guess, with regards to the KE4, you could say that it definitely does have that kind of meta type of tune. With the Odyssey, with the Crescent, I guess you could also say to a certain extent it's also got a little bit of that vibe, although that section there of the bass and low mids and mids, so between 200 hertz and 1 kilohertz, it's more plateaued, so it has less that meta kind of approach to things. They are here because overall the way they sound and the way the Odyssey 2 sounds is very similar. These three actually sound particularly close. You do notice, yes, that there's a little bit more bass energy on these two, but it was actually quite surprisingly. I would even say that the KE4 is the one that even sounds closest to the Odyssey 2. Even with the fact that it does have the two bass drivers and so on, it's the one that actually does sound even closer to the Odyssey 2. Anyway, let's get into it. The original one, like I mentioned in the beginning of the review, had a kind of a more V-shaped signature, if you want to put it that way, by comparison to the current Odyssey. Although I didn't really feel that that was entirely fair. It had a nicely done bass, which was flat by 200, and then continued to slowly and gradually still drop off until about 1 kilohertz, and then it picked up again to peak at about 3, with that little kink that you usually find there at 2 kilohertz, very meta oriented, and then nice extension all the way out through, nice extension past 10k, nice big sound stage. It was a very well tuned. It is a very well tuned IM. And for the $229 price point that it's being sold, and sometimes you can even get it a little bit lower. There's very little that you can complain about the way that it plays. I mean, it shoots way above its price point. It's solid. It's I guess really the only point where maybe some people could complain was that they would have liked a little bit more mids, but not what I personally thought. I thought it was always pretty well balanced. The Odyssey 2, what does it try and do? It tries, by virtue of that different shell material, which obviously then will introduce different resonances, tries to and you notice that the bass has got a little bit more precision to it. It's not a huge difference, but it's got a little bit more precision to it, and it sounds tighter. And that tightness of the bass and that precision of the bass, coupled to the fact that the upper mids area there between 2 and 3.5, 4K has been boosted up ever so slightly, does open up the sound in terms of the vocals a little bit more. So it's a little bit more detailed vocal wise. And then past 5 it drops off faster than the original Odyssey, so there's I wouldn't say lack of sparkle up top, no, but there's a slightly smaller soundstage. So this definitely the emphasis or the focus has been on the mids being extremely well done with a tight controlled bass and just enough extension up top. While here, yes, by comparison, you could say that the sound is more V-shaped, so strong bass, strong extension up top, with the mids being slightly laid back as compared to the two extremes. As for the Crescent and the K4, I mean, they've been talked about plenty of times. I personally feel that these two are probably two of the most solid IMs at their respective price points and their configurations. I mean, the way that the DDs have been implemented here for the bass is phenomenal, be it both in the Crescent or be it in the KE4. Perhaps of the two, the one that might I'm trying to avoid saying V-shaped and mid-focused, but I think the one that will probably satisfy more people will be the Crescent, because of the way that it has those slightly more energetic mids as compared to the K4. And when I say that the K4 reminds me a lot of the Odyssey 2, it's precisely because the way that it's been done here, the mids is similar to here. I find that the mids are the star of the show here in the KE4, as opposed to what a lot of people thought, that it was laid back. But when I compare the mids here to the mids on the Odyssey, I have to admit that the Odyssey does have slightly more energetic mids, although they don't sound that way. I get more of a comparatively a V-type sound out of the Odyssey, out of the Crescent, than what I do out of the K4. Look, irrespective of everything that I'm saying, the reality is this: the differences between these four is not huge. It's not monumental. It's going to be a difference that's going to be mainly and above all focused on the amount of bass that you get, and in that aspect, yes, these two are the bassiest ones. The way that bass is then integrated into the mids and the highs, where I would say probably the nicest way, the nicest integration that has been done here, trying to please a broader spectrum of people, will probably be the Odyssey 2 and the Crescent. Although, like I said, I very much appreciate and like the way it's done in the original Odyssey and in the way the K4. And then in terms of extension up top, the Odyssey, the original Odyssey, will probably be on par with the Crescent, the ones that stand out slightly. But like I said, the differences are not huge. They are differences that you pick up on different songs. Yes, like for example, Deeper, from Jeff Belasco, you notice that Pete Belasco, sorry, you notice that on the Crescent it's got a lot of energy, a lot of definitely. But Hotel California, for example, from Eagles, on the Odyssey 2 and on the KE4, it's where I personally liked it the most. Not that the other two here, the original Odyssey or the Crescent, didn't do it properly, but in these two it's where it sounded the best. So it's very much a kind of a give and take and a trading of blows. High Stepping by Larry Carlton as well. It's a song that, for example, in the original Odyssey sounds really good. In the Crescent it sounds really good, and over here it sounds also good, but it just, I don't know, there's just something that makes it more engaging to listen to it in the original Odyssey or in the Crescent. So guys, ultimately what I'm trying to basically say here is there are not huge day and night differences here. There are not. The differences are going to be very subtle and very much dependent on what source you're using and what tips you're using, how well that IM fits you. Those are going to be the dictators. If I have to kind of give, let's say, a more, I don't want to position them, because it's like I said, it's not fair. In terms of overall value for money, yes, I mean $199 is probably the one that has the best value for money, the KE4, with the Odyssey being close second. These two already are pushing the envelope, especially the Crescent. It's $279. It's a lot of money already. Is the $279 here, for example, is the extra $80 over the KE4 justified? It's questionable, guys. It's honestly, it is questionable. If you factor in accessories and so on and so forth, yes, I guess you could say so. But anyway, if I have to position them and to help you guys make a better decision, if you have the Odyssey, does the Odyssey 2 make sense? Only if you really found the Odyssey lacking in any way in terms of the mids. Only, and I don't think that was a consensus. I think that yes, the mids were a little bit laid back as compared to the bass and the treble, but it wasn't something which was a deal breaker in my opinion. So the Odyssey 2 will be for those that want a sound which is very vocal focused, very mid-centric focused, but has got nice, clean, incisive bass, which feels more composed, more times than less than the Odyssey. Okay, by that incisiveness, like that cleanliness, that impactness that it can have due to the shell, and at times even reminds us of the bass energy that we get here on the Crescent and on the QE ears, the K4. And then I would say after the Odyssey, again, I wanna make this perfectly clear. I'm not rating this as the number one. I'm trying to choose or point which would be perhaps the one that is the most versatile. I would say the Crescent, K4, and then Odyssey. And guys, I mean, the differences, again, let's make this perfectly clear. Minimal differences. Any one of these four IMs are phenomenal. If you have any one of these other ones except for the Odyssey, I'm not going to say to get rid of them and go fetch the Odyssey because you're going to be doing an upgrade. No, you won't. If anything, they will be side grades to each other. That's how close they are. So definitely there's not one year that it's going to be, the Odyssey 2 is not an upgrade over any of the others. Maybe a slight upgrade over the original Odyssey, only because of that extra cleanliness that the sound has acquired and the extra little detail that the mids now have. But it's not a huge difference, guys. It really isn't a huge difference. Anyway, let me just quickly show you the graphs and we'll wrap this up. Alrighty, so let's talk graphs now. Okay, so all of these measurements that I'm going to be showing you were using the same tips, although then the tips that I actually did use with the IMs varied slightly, but all use the same KV07 tip for trying to maintain more consistency between the measurements. Okay, this is the original Odyssey. Okay, this next one is the Odyssey, the Mark II version. Let me actually just make it here red so that there's more contrast. A little bit extra energy there, as I said, a little bit less there in the upper frequencies and the high treble. The difference here, honestly, it's more down to what the shell is doing to the bass than anything else. The bass on the original Odyssey will sound maybe a little bit more warmer. On the Odyssey Mark II, it sounds more incisive, if that's the best possible way I can describe it. And that incisiveness does give the perception of it being more tucked in, more controlled. Okay. This one is the KE4, and as I mentioned, the KE4 very similar to the Odyssey Mark II, as you can see. Okay, very similar. And finally, the Crescent is the one that does have a slight difference here in terms of how this part here of the bass to low mids and to mids is done. But again, a lot of similarities in there in the mids and upper mids. A lot of similarities. Of course, being two DDs both in the Crescent and in the K4, the bass sounds quite potent, quite present, and yes, the Crescent can at times sound a little bit more V-shaped, much like the original Odyssey can sound a little bit more V-shaped when you're comparing it with the, let's say, the kind of more mid-focused, more neutralish type of presentation that the Odyssey 2 is going for. Alright, anyway guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask me and I'll do my best to answer. Take care now, bye bye.